Hey hockey fans, welcome to Goal Line Hockey, and today we're going to continue the Season Outlook series as we take a look at the Minnesota Wild. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and a subscribe. Alright, so taking a look at the Minnesota Wild, let's start this off looking at the points leaders for the Minnesota Wild, and leading the list with 61 points is Zach Parise. He was out a little bit this season with an injury. And that definitely, was a factor for the Minnesota Wild. At the end of the season, it didn't matter all that much, but it was a factor. Eric Staal, 52 points. Mikael Granlund, 49 points, excuse me. Mikael Granlund at this point isn't even with the team. But he's there. Ryan Suter, 47 points. And Jared Spurgeon with 43 points. So, the Minnesota Wild obviously have some glaring issues in terms of goal scoring. We saw them move out guys like Charlie Coyle, Mikael Granlund. So, this team is definitely in a transition, and we're starting to see this team rebuild. I don't know how much rebuilding they can really do with heavy contracts like Ryan Suter and Zach Parise. They really could have used a good draft pick this year, and we'll see what happens at the draft. They did not win the lottery, so any hope of a top 3 pick this year is out the window. It's going to have to be a good later in the round draft pick that really gives the Wild what they need. Taking a look at the record for this team, 37 wins, 36 losses, 9 overtime losses. That accounts for 83 points. And that looks okay until you realize 7th in the Central Division. So that's awful. That is not good. And I think any Minnesota Wild fan would be willing to tell you 7th in the division is not good. Take a look at the goals for. They had 211 goals for, so that's 28th best in the NHL. Like I said, you could tell with the points leaders, it wasn't misleading at all. They've struggled to score goals. But goals against, they've always been known to be a good team that keeps the puck out of the net, and especially with guys like Dubnyk in goal, makes life a little bit easier. 237 goals against, that's 13th best in the NHL. So a lot better. Not perfect, but considering where they finished in the standings, 13th best in goals against, is a good way to build up your hockey team. If you're good there are some bright spots. It's the issue with not scoring enough goals that we've seen from the Wild. And it's Bruce Boudreau has been behind the bench now, and what really is the future of this Wild team? How far can they go with this core? And I really think the window is starting to close on this team, and it seems like this reminds me of the Detroit Red Wings a couple years back. A team that's got some great players, but it's not working, and it's just you had some good playoff success, and now you're starting to bow out, and it's not good for the Wild. I think they do have to start going in a different direction. We saw them trade Charlie Coyle for Donato and a couple draft picks, and we saw Donato have some success. Charlie Coyle not so much in the regular season, but now in the playoffs he's been a huge factor for the Boston Bruins in his hometown. So an overall great trade. They traded Nino Niederreiter for Victor Rask. That trade has not been great. We see where the the Hurricanes are right now in the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and Nino's been a big part of that team for the Hurricanes. Meanwhile, Victor Rask has been in and out of the lineup for the Wild since he's come in. He was injured when they acquired him, and I feel like they rushed him back in toward the end of the season just to make him play games, and he didn't play well, so he went back out. He was in and out with that injury, and it definitely didn't help this situation. And now taking a look at the prospects, Connor Dewar, Alex Kavanov, and Kirill Kaprizov. So there's a little bit of a gleaming light for this for this Minnesota team. And I think these guys are going to be the start of the next, the movement of the youth in this lineup as we see some guys start to retire in this roster. I'm winking at a couple of guys over the next couple of years, and it just happens. That's the way it works. And these young guys are going to have to be, the part of the next group of players that comes up for the Wild, starts to get them ready for the rebuild. And who knows how long of a rebuild this could be for the Wild. I'm definitely a little bit worried about their prospect pool. If they can trade out some more guys, maybe they could flip things around a little bit. Maybe we see Eric Stahl go next, over the summer. Probably not over the summer because he just re-signed a contract, but maybe next season. I don't know if he has a no-move clause or not for that contract next year, but I'm sure it's something the Wild are going to look at. Stahl, how do you get rid of a guy like Suter or Parise? I think those contracts are going to be pretty difficult to move. Spurgeon, Brodin, Dumba, those are the guys that are going to start. You're going to start hearing about possibly being rumored to be moved for the Minnesota Wild, and allowing this team to move forward. Looking at next year, do I have this team making the playoffs? No, I think they still have a little bit of a ways to go. There are some leaps and bounds that this team would really have to overcome this summer. Maybe making some trades that are lateral, that help with that forward group, and don't hurt the defense, to an overwhelming amount. That's what the Minnesota Wild would need. We know that defensive core of Dumba, Brodin, Suter, those guys, that's a good core. Probably one of the better, cores in the NHL in terms of defense. They don't want to break that up, but I feel like that's something that, maybe just addressing the weakness over the summer instead of costing you your defense would probably be the better option. Just try and find some guys, maybe for a cheaper price. I really wish things worked out for Tyler Ennis in Minnesota. And this is what becomes the next question for the Minnesota Wild is nothing against Bruce Boudreau, but is the way his system runs, it allows for for his teams to, be able to play good defensive hockey, but it doesn't allow the offense to thrive with certain players. And you know who I'm talking about now. Nino Niederreiter, we saw he kind of struggled a little bit with the Wild. Now he's been in Carolina, he's played so well. Why couldn't he have that kind of success in Minnesota? Another example, Tyler Ennis played with the Minnesota Wild, signed a contract. Now he was in Toronto this past year. He was up and down the lineup, and he was a huge producer for that Toronto team who has some really great players. So now the question starts to become why? Why aren't players scoring goals on our hockey team? Why aren't guys producing? Maybe that comes back to the coaching and the management not properly allowing these guys to have the success that they can have and letting them grow to their full potential. And I think that's something that Minnesota's going to have to figure out partially this summer. Big summer ahead for the Minnesota Wild. I don't know how much they will really move, but I'm sure those defensemen will be talked about as being in play. Thank you for watching us here at Goal Line Hockey. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and to subscribe as well. And make sure to check out our other season outlook videos. We have the whole series as we go throughout the NHL. And we'll see what happens with the Minnesota Wild next season.